The afternoon sun glared against the white brick wall, glinting off wet paint. 16-year-old Evan stood there, roller in hand, brushing a fresh coat over a mess of graffiti that stretched across his neighbor's fence. Sweat clung to his forehead, but he smiled. The last smear of red spray paint was almost gone. That's when he heard the sirens. Blue and red lights flashed across the quiet suburban street. 2 police cruisers screeched to a stop in front of him. A sharp voice barked, "Drop the paint roller and step away from the wall." Evan froze. Paint dripped from the roller onto the driveway as his mind spun. What on earth was happening? Then came the voice that made everything make sense. And no sense at all. "Officer! That's him! That's the kid vandalizing my property!" Across the street stood Mrs. Patterson, the self-proclaimed HOA president, or as everyone called her behind her back, Karen of Maple Grove. Arms folded, lips tight, and phone still clutched from her 911 call, she looked furious. Evan blinked, speechless. "Ma'am, I wasn't vandalizing anything. I was—" "Quiet!" she snapped, cutting him off. "You've been sneaking around this neighborhood for weeks. I saw you painting my wall." The officers exchanged looks. One of them approached Evan carefully. "Son, do you have permission to be here?" Evan swallowed hard. It's your wall," he said, nodding toward Karen. "I was cleaning it. Someone spray-painted?" Karen scoffed loudly. "Oh, please. A vandal suddenly turned Good Samaritan? Do I look stupid?" The officer sighed and glanced at the wet paint, then at the cans neatly stacked beside Evan, each labeled with the same neutral beige color as Karen's house trim. Something didn't add up. "Ma'am," the officer said slowly, "this looks like touch-up paint, not graffiti." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Don't tell me how to spot a criminal. I run this community." The other officer turned to Evan. "Son, can you show us where the graffiti was?" Evan hesitated, then pointed to a few faint red streaks still visible near the base of the wall. "It was right here. I saw it on my way home from school and thought I'd clean it up. My dad's a contractor. I borrowed some paint from our garage." Karen's confident smirk faltered just slightly, but she wasn't about to back down, not yet. Karen stood rigid, her arms crossed as the officers examined the wall. The smell of fresh paint hung heavy in the air, blending with the tension that now gripped the quiet street. A few neighbors peeked through blinds and half-open doors, drawn by the flashing police lights. Evan shifted nervously, heart pounding. "You can still see the old graffiti," he said, pointing to a faded outline of spray-painted letters. It said, well, it wasn't something nice. The first officer crouched, tracing the faint lines with his gloved finger. "He's right," he murmured to his partner. "This was definitely tagged before. Looks like he's covering it up." Karen's eyes widened for a second, then narrowed again. "He could have pretended to clean it just to get attention. Teenagers do that for social media, you know." Evan blinked, stunned. "I'm not filming anything! I was just trying to help!" Karen scoffed. "Oh, don't play the hero. You're the same kid who leaves his bike in the cul-de-sac, blocking the sidewalk. I told the HOA about it twice." The crowd that had gathered now murmured among themselves. A man across the street called out, "Karen, I saw the graffiti this morning. The kid's been painting over it for nearly an hour." Karen shot him a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "Stay out of this, Mike!" The officer looked between them. "Ma'am, it sounds like this young man might have actually been helping." But Karen refused to accept defeat. "Then why didn't he ask permission?" "This is private property. You can't just walk up and paint something that isn't yours." Evan clenched his jaw. "I was trying to fix what someone else ruined. My dad says if something's broken and you can fix it, you should. I didn't mean any harm." The officers exchanged another look. The first one finally sighed. "Ma'am, we're not seeing any sign of criminal intent here. The paint matches your original color. There's no evidence of vandalism." Karen's face turned red, her voice rising. "So you're just going to let him off?" "He trespassed!" "He defaced my property," but the second officer cut her off gently. "Ma'am, maybe you should take a closer look before accusing someone next time." Karen's mouth opened, then closed again. For once, she had no comeback. Evan looked down, shoulders heavy. He wasn't angry, just hurt. He'd wanted to do something good, but somehow ended up as the bad guy. As the police packed up their gear and the crowd dispersed, Karen stood frozen, glaring at the wall she'd sworn was vandalized. The paint was drying perfectly smooth. 3 days later, the Maple Grove Community Center buzzed with whispers. Folding chairs lined the polished floor, filled with curious residents waiting for the monthly HOA meeting. Normally, these gatherings were dull, talk of recycling bins, lawn heights, and fence colors. But tonight, everyone knew there'd be fireworks. At the front stood Karen Patterson, arms folded, pearls glinting beneath the fluorescent lights. Her jaw was set like stone. "Before we begin," she announced sharply, "I'd like to address the incident involving one of our neighborhood's youth and the vandalism on my property." A low murmur rippled through the room. Evan sat quietly in the back, next to his father, Mark. His hands were clenched, paint still faintly under his fingernails. Mark had insisted on coming, saying it was time people heard the truth. Karen continued, holding up printed photos, ones she'd clearly taken after the police left. This is what happens when people think they can just do whatever they want. A young man, without permission, decided to paint over my wall. It was reckless, disrespectful, and frankly, Mark stood up slowly. With all due respect, Mrs. Patterson, you left out the part where he was cleaning up someone else's mess. Karen's lips thinned. He trespassed, Mr. Lewis. We have rules for a reason. Mark took a step forward, his voice calm but firm. Rules don't replace kindness. My son saw your wall vandalized and decided to help. You called the police on him for fixing your problem. A few neighbors nodded. One woman spoke up. He's right, Karen. That graffiti was disgusting. My daughter saw it on her way to school. Karen's control began to crack. I didn't know that, she stammered, clutching her notes tighter. But still, he should have been thanked, another resident interrupted. Instead, you humiliated him in front of everyone. You had police cars on our street like it was a crime scene. The crowd murmured louder now, several people shaking their heads in disapproval. Karen's cheeks flushed red. This isn't a popularity contest. I'm trying to protect our community. Mark met her gaze. A community is built on trust and decency, not fear and false accusations. Karen tried to respond, but the words caught in her throat. Her once commanding tone faltered into silence. Evan sat quietly, unsure whether to feel vindicated or just exhausted. He hadn't come to fight. He'd only wanted to do the right thing. By the time the meeting ended, people avoided Karen's glare. For the first time, her authority didn't feel quite so absolute. Outside, Evan exhaled into the cool night air. But fate wasn't done with him yet. The next morning dawned soft and quiet. Dew shimmered on the grass, and birds chirped lazily as the neighborhood slowly came to life. Evan was heading to school when he noticed something unusual. Karen standing by her wall. She wasn't holding her phone or clipboard for once. Instead, she had a small paintbrush in her hand. Evan hesitated. Part of him wanted to keep walking, pretend not to see her. But curiosity got the better of him. He approached slowly, clutching his backpack straps. Mrs. Patterson? Karen turned, startled. Her expression was different. No glare, no tight lips. Just tired eyes. Evan, she said softly, almost uncertain. Good morning? He nodded cautiously. Morning. Everything okay? Karen sighed, staring at the wall. You did a good job, she admitted. Better than I expected. I checked the color match yesterday. It's perfect. Evan blinked. Thanks. I just wanted to help. I know, she said quietly. And I overreacted. She lowered the brush, fidgeting with it. When I saw someone painting my wall, I just assumed the worst. I didn't even stop to ask what you were doing. I've spent so long trying to keep this neighborhood perfect that I forgot. People make it perfect, not rules. Evan didn't know what to say. The apology caught him completely off guard. Karen glanced at him again. I spoke to the HOA board last night. We're setting up a small neighborhood volunteer group for things like this. Cleanups, repairs, anything that helps. I was hoping... She hesitated. You'd help me lead it. Evan's eyes widened. Me? She smiled faintly. You've already proven you care more than most adults around here. For a moment, neither spoke. The morning breeze rustled the bushes, carrying away the tension that had lingered for days. Finally, Evan smiled. I'd like that. Karen nodded, relief washing over her face. Then she turned to the wall and with a trembling hand, began painting a small white heart over one of the faint graffiti, marks still visible beneath the beige. Consider this my apology, she said. Later that week, a sign appeared near the community entrance. Maple Grove Care Crew, keeping our neighborhood beautiful together. Evan's name was at the top of the list, and right beneath it, in slightly smaller letters, was Karen Patterson's. The story that began with sirens and suspicion ended with paint, patience, and a rare thing in Maple Grove, understanding. Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't need permission, just persistence. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe for more real-life HOA and Karen dramas, and share this video with someone who loves a good twist. Your support helps us bring more stories like this every week.